You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're listening to Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. Locked On Mets, free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. On the show today, we're going to talk about a blowout Mets win in the first segment. Then in the second segment, I want to talk about Juan Soto's greatest a little bit. We'll also preview the upcoming game today and a couple of news items as some Mets pitchers have been recommended to get Tommy John surgery. But before we get into any of that, I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. I've been covering the New York Mets on this show since the 2019 season. It's the only podcast that covers the Mets 7 days a week throughout the regular season. If you want to find some of my written work, you can do so over at justbaseball.com, where I work as the editor-in-chief. Now, the Mets did a great job on Friday night as they fell behind but did what they're supposed to do, which is beat up on bad pitching. And you're going to see a lot of bad pitching this weekend against the Nationals, and the Mets just have to stay in these games. And I think the most encouraging thing about this team over this past week is we are seeing this lineup and what they can do when everyone's right. You look at the top three hitters in this lineup for the Mets. Francisco Lindor, 3 for 4, scored 4 runs, had an RBI, drew a walk. Juan Soto, 2 for 3, scored 2 runs, drove in 3, walked twice. Pete Alonso, 2 for 4, scored a run, RBI, walked. I mean, those 3 guys to combine and go, what is that, 7 for 11 with 7 runs scored and 5 RBIs, that is what can make this team so dangerous. When they're big 3, and I know there's been a lot of talk about the Fab Four with Brandon Nimmo being included in there. And yes, Nimmo obviously a player on a big contract who, mind you, did have a big RBI hit in this game, went 2 for 5. But it's really the 3 all-star caliber players. They're the guys that really do move the needle. And when you have that top of the lineup going, you can be dangerous. And so I think that's the biggest thing you take from this game is you see these guys continue to do it and continue to lead this team, and that's what needs to happen over the final week of this season. To get into more of the specifics of the game, Brandon Sproat had a clean 1-2-3 first inning. The Mets got on the board in the bottom of the first. Francisco Lindor leadoff single after Juan Soto struck out. Pete Alonso got a single into right field that Dylan Cruz just misplayed, made an error, and that allowed Lindor to score from first. So the Mets get 1 run there, but Mark Vientos hits into a double play ball that prevents the Mets from getting anything else going in the first. Brandon Sproat had another 1-2-3 inning in the second, but in the third inning he started to run into some troubles, issued a leadoff walk, gave up a base hit, and then made a throwing error that allowed that walk to come all the way around to score, walks another batter, and then gets a double play ball. And so he was on the cusp of getting out of the inning, having given up only 1 run, but he gives up a double to C.J. Abrams, and then another, I'll put some quotes around, double to Josh Bell. Now, this was originally ruled an error because Jose Siri, who is in there for defense and his great ability to hit left-handed pitching, what he do today offensively, 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts, he gets to the ball, it hits his glove, and he doesn't make the catch. I don't know how they decided to rule that a double. I guess because most center fielders don't get to that ball. But still, you got to catch that baseball. It literally hit his glove. If he catches that, Brandon Sproat's out of the inning, giving up just 2 runs. Instead, double extends the inning. And then you had what very well could have been a single or maybe a hustle double with the speed of Dalen Lyle. But Jose Siri sort of lazy to the ball, and it gets past him and goes all the way to the wall and becomes a triple that scores a run. Now, the run might have scored anyway. With 2 outs, runner on second base, fine. That hit should have probably scored a run. But the fact that it ends up being a triple, just some lazy defense from Siri after a play that he should have made. I understood starting him in this game because Jeff McNeil, as we talked about on yesterday's show, looking a little bit tired, and so I like that Brett Beatty got the start at second, and they went with Vientos at third with Marte at DH against the lefty. You gave McNeil a day. I probably would have just started Cedric Mullins, but I get it. It's what they're going to do. Tyrone Taylor luckily began a rehab assignment today, so he should be back in short order probably next week. He'll play one more game at the end of the final game of the Syracuse Mets season on Sunday to finish up his rehab, and then he should come on back, you would think, potentially as soon as that series against the Cubs. And the Mets could use him because Jose Siri is not it. Regardless, though, now the Mets are trailing, and they're losing 4-1. They had to try to get back in this game and went back to the top of the lineup after Brett Beatty and Jose Siri got out to lead off the third. So with 2 outs, Francisco Lindor draws a walk to start a rally. Juan Soto, base hit, another error by Dylan Cruz, just misplaying the ball to allow Lindor to get to third. And then Pete Alonso gets the RBI single to cut the lead. So then it was a 4-2 game. Bottom of the 4th inning, you had a big old rally for the New York Mets. Brandon Nimmo, Starling Marte, both of them got singles. Francisco Alvarez hit one into the left field corner that scored them both, so it was a tie ball game. Brett Beatty got hit by a pitch. Jose Siri struck out, comes back up to the top of the lineup, and Lindor comes through with a base hit to score a run. And then Juan Soto comes up, and what I saw later, because for those of you who probably are watching on YouTube, maybe didn't know why this is an audio-only show today, I am on a little weekend trip here. So I was on the road listening to the game, but I got to watch the highlights after, where they had on the SNY broadcast a little bit of foreshadowing somehow with the rubbing of the memorabilia apple on the side, and then it summons a home run hit to the apple by Juan Soto. Huge blast, his 42nd home run of the season, a career high for Soto, which is why we're going to talk about it more in the next segment. And that plates 3 runs. Mets take commanding 8-4 lead. Huascar Brazoban was not great. He gave up a 2-run homer to make it 8-6. So the Mets had to exhaust their bullpen a little bit to get this win, but their bullpen was very good beyond Brazoban. You had Rayleigh get the final 2 outs of the 5th. He then got the first out of the 6th. Ryan Stanek got the second and third out of the 6th. In the 7th inning, Ryan Helsley came on. 1-2-3 frame. That is the 3rd consecutive scoreless appearance for Helsley, so maybe he's starting to find it. Looked really comfortable on the mound, so that's a huge development for the Mets. If it can continue, bottom of the 7th inning, you had the Mets able to plate another run. You had Jeff McNeil lead off single. Luis Angel Acuna came in to run. He stole second base, advanced to third on a ground out, and scored on another ground out. 8th inning, it was Tylor Rogers. Again, a 1-2-3 inning. Bottom of the 8th, with 2 outs, the Mets rallied once again. Lindor with the double. Soto intentionally walked. Pete Alonso draws a walk. Luis Angel Acuna draws a bases-loaded walk that scores a run, and then Brandon Nimmo with the RBI single to make it 12-6, and that would be the finish. Chris Stefanski worked on a couple of hits in the 9th inning and still put up a 0, a 2.16 ERA for Chris Stefanski, which is wild. But huge win for the New York Mets because, as I'm recording right now, everybody has been winning, so we're going to touch on that a little bit in the next segment. Your wild card update, we're going to talk about Juan Soto, and we're going to preview what lies ahead. So a lot to discuss here in just a minute. But first, today's episode is brought to you by ZipX. Need a boost to power through your day without reaching for another cup of coffee or an energy drink? That's where ZipX caffeine toothpicks come in. Instead of the crash you get from sugary drinks, ZipX gives you a clean, convenient burst of caffeine anytime, anywhere. And if you're looking for that nicotine satisfaction, they've got ZipX nicotine toothpicks as well. I've used the caffeine toothpicks before a big meeting. Today I was getting a little tired on the drive up, and luckily I remembered my ZipX, and I was able to put a toothpick in my mouth there, and all of a sudden I started to feel a little bit more energized, and it's without those jitters you might get from the sugary coffee or those energy drinks that are packed with sugar. The flavors are legit. I love the peppermint watermelon ice. If you're ready to try them, go to ZipXToothpicks.com and use the promo code LOCKEDON for 10% off your first order. That's ZipXToothpicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. ZipX Toothpicks, energy and focus anytime you need it. If you're watching on YouTube today, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Help us get closer to our next goal of 15,000 subscribers. I'd love to get there by the end of the season. We're about 500 away. Really do appreciate all of you who continue to subscribe. So I wanted to take a minute on today's show to just appreciate the greatness of Juan Soto and the season that he's had. And this is why any bit of criticism about the contract and whether he was worth it, it's obvious why you get Juan Soto, because you have a player that puts up monster numbers year after year after year. When this guy is right, he is giving you a great at-bat pretty much every time up to the plate, where he's getting to 3-2 counts, he's hitting the ball hard, and now all of a sudden you're seeing him get better and better as a power hitter. Juan Soto has always been a slugger. When he was 19 years old, he hit 22 home runs as a rookie. When he was helping lead his team to a World Series in 2019, he hit 34 bombs. So it's not like he is new to hitting home runs. But I think he is evolving and getting better at it. Like Pete Alonso, who broke into the big leagues at pretty much the same age that Soto is now, so maybe a little bit different, but Pete came in just knowing how to leave the yard with regularity and hit 40 home runs. Juan Soto hit 40 home runs for the first time last year, and everyone was attributing the short porch at Yankee Stadium for helping him get that extra little bit of home runs. Well, now this year, everyone was wondering, how's he going to do outside of the friendly confines, without that short porch? How's he going to fare? And this guy hits him out of any ballpark. And now he's got 42 home runs in what was once considered a down season. It's not a down season anymore. He's sitting here with a 931 OPS. He's hitting 265 on the year, 397 on base. So this could be the first time, actually, that he does finish below 400 when it comes to his on-base percentage. But he's right there. So a good final week, and he should push over that line again. But I think what's really impressive is, obviously, the 42 home runs. 103 RBIs. Very well could get to a career high there. Career high in RBIs was 110 back in 2019. He's hit 109 the past 2 years prior to this. But you have 117 run score. I think he's he has the second most in the National League. And now he is 6 stolen bases away from going 40-40. Now, I called this out on, I want to say I pulled the date of this the other day. I think it was either it might have been early September, where I was looking at what Juan Soto did with stolen bases in August and doing the math on how many more he needed, and started to think, okay, could Juan Soto actually get 40-40, which is insane to think that he can do that. He stole 11 bases in August. Now he's stolen 8 bases so far in September. He'd have to steal 14 this month. Needs 6 more to get there. There's 8 games left. He might not have time. You don't know. I mean, he could very well come up short, but he's going to go 40-35. And you start to get to the point where, and we'll have plenty of time in the offseason to do here are all the crazy stats and records that Juan Soto set. But, I mean, he is getting down to the point where he's having, when you add home runs and walks and RBIs and certain statistics where it's, only Juan Soto and Barry Bonds did this, or only Juan Soto and Jeff Bagwell did this. I mean, he is a no doubt about it first ballot Hall of Famer in his absolute prime, and that prime could extend for a full decade. And that's why he got the money that he did, and that's why it's worth it, because this window is just opening with Juan Soto. This very well and probably is not the best year we're ever going to see with Juan Soto in a Mets uniform. And so here he is in what's going to be still a great year for him, but maybe not the best we're ever going to see. And it might actually be the best we have seen in a Mets uniform. And again, we'll have more time where I can really pour into the numbers and make the statistical argument at some point in time about how this was the best offensive season anyone's ever had in franchise history. And I don't even know if it is. I mean, I'm going to really have to dive deep into the numbers and see, okay, what was Mike Piazza's best year? What was David Wright's best year? What was Carlos Beltran's best year? Keith Hernandez, Gary Carter, Darryl Strawberry, all those greats. And maybe there has been other seasons that have been better than this. But I know that no Met has ever gone 40-30, and he's about to go 40-35 with a chance of going, who knows, 45-40 when it's all said and done, because I think there's every chance he gets 3 more homers And I think there's a possibility that he still 6 more bags. So amazing stuff for Soto. And that was such a huge swing to break the game open. The Mets have to keep it up offensively in this series because they're playing a team that's just not very good. Like, you really can't just go into these games and let, Mitchell Parker, I know, is going on Sunday. I'm trying to remember who the pitcher that's going to, Cade Cavalli. You can't let these guys dominate you, especially because if you can just get the starter out of the game, it's one of the worst bullpens in baseball. So the Mets have to continue to capitalize. It's McClain day to day. So with Nolan McClain on the mound, you hope the Mets can get the job done, win this series early. Actually, I guess they subbed it out. So now it's going to be Jake Irvin going on Sunday instead of Mitchell Parker. So Mitchell Parker originally was slated to make the start. Not sure if there's an injury there, what happened. Irvin has not been very good this year, and the Mets, if memory serves, did knock him around the last time that he faced the Mets. So still, advantage Mets. It sounds like Sean Manaea will pitch in that game with Clay Holmes. So I like that, especially considering how much the bullpen was used today. If Nolan McClain can get you 6 and hopefully have a big lead, maybe you don't even need to tap into that bullpen too much. But if you got to exhaust the pen to get that second win, ideally on Sunday, you're going to get that tandem through most of the 9 innings between Clay Holmes and Sean Manaea. Now, few injury notes, and then I'll try to pull some scores real quick before I close. It appears like both Tylor Megill and Reed Garrett could be heading towards Tommy John surgery, which is just a devastating blow for both of those guys, and more so for the 2026 Mets, because we kind of knew that they weren't going to pitch for the team this year. But, I mean, when you talk about Megill, this very well could mean the end of his tenure with the New York Mets. Let me pull his exact free agent year. His free agency is going to be 2028. So I guess he could pitch for the Mets in 2027. But he's going to miss all 2026. So 2027, assuming the Mets decide that it's worth it to keep him around and let him rehab with the team, which they probably will, because, that 40-man roster spot will eventually open up as soon as you can transfer him to the 60-day IL. But, for Megill, that means 1 year at then 32 years old to try to, get, or 30, it'll be his age 31 season. But he'll go into free agency at 32. So a real tough blow for Megill, who showed a lot of flashes this year. I mean, look, it was a 3.96 ERA in 14 starts, and he struck out 89 and 68 in the third innings pitched. I mean, he was, at one point this year, really throwing the ball great. So that's just a big blow to the Mets next year. But at the same time, you got a lot of starting pitching depth coming through. So, they should be fine, but really just a big blow for Megill. You feel bad for him. And for Reed Garrett, say what you want about the way he's been pitching lately, and part of that could just be due to the injury. This guy has been a big piece of the bullpen for the last couple of years. And now you lose him for probably all of next season. So definitely a tough blow to the Mets to find out that both those guys are likely heading towards Tommy John. Last thing to look at, we'll pull up the scores here. I know the Reds won. They came back and beat the Cubs. Right now, bottom of the 6th inning as I'm recording this, Phillies are up on the Diamondbacks. For once, you're actually rooting for the Phillies to win a game. So we'll see if they can finish that bad boy off. The Giants are up 2-1 over the Dodgers right now. Bottom line, the Mets' magic number, it's going to stay at 7 because the Reds won. And the Reds have the tiebreaker over the Mets. So the Mets need to win at least one more game than the Reds. And the most that the Reds can win now that they have taken this game, they have 8 left. They're at 78 wins, so they can get to 86, which means the Mets need to win 87, hence a magic number of 87. Again, magic numbers are just based on the team that is closest to you and maybe has the tiebreaker and what it would take to beat them if you control your fate and win everything and they win everything. What's the magic number so that you will get the playoff spot and they'll be eliminated? So again, for the Mets, right now that's 7, and regardless of what happens with the Diamondbacks and the Giants, it's going to remain at 7 because of the Reds, but hopefully the Cubs can win some games in this series and push the Reds back a little bit in this wild card race, and the Mets can gain some games, because assuming the Diamondbacks lose tonight or tomorrow and the Reds lose tomorrow and the Mets win, all of a sudden your magic number will be cut to 5 with one more game to play on Sunday to potentially cut it to 4 on your own. But Even if the Mets just themselves sweep this series, they're going to go into the final week of the season with a magic number of 5, which means a couple of losses from those teams, 3 wins from the Mets in the final week, then they can get the job done. So we'll obviously continue to monitor all of this. Really do appreciate everyone for tuning in to this audio-only show. I will be back with another podcast tomorrow for your Sunday morning show, where I will be doing, again, 2 segments as I am on this vacation for the next couple days. And we'll be back to your full-on video show with the 3 segments on Tuesday. It'll be audio only for the next couple of days. Really do appreciate, again, all of you tuned in. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. If you are watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Help us get closer to our next goal of 15,000 subscribers. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, being part of our texting service, go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. You can find a link in our episode description. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen or your first watch every day. Now, for your second listen or watch, check out Locked On MLB Game Night, the show that'll take you around all the action in Major League Baseball with insight from our local experts and league-wide experts that'll take you through the games. You find Locked On MLB Game Night on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel as well as the Locked On MLB podcast feed.